these ISF cross charges have to do with the cost of labor in a particular department. That cost of labor goes up, the ISF charges go up. So if the IT department or public safety costs go up, it hits library ISF charges and it becomes buried. And I think that was a good point, that costs of operating the city become buried and blurred in this, and we don't see what the real costs are.
Correct, and it sometimes, I mean, I don't want to say we don't see what the real costs are. The operating departments that deliver the internal service funds, Marnie, Chris Benson, our directors, it's their charge ultimately to be as efficient in how they deliver those services as possible. It's really on them. I agree with Elizabeth in that sometimes it's hard, it's frustrating to understand what another department is doing at the micro level when you're a recipient of those services. And all you can do, and I'll tell you, our team works very closely, the department heads do work very closely together to try to understand what happens, particularly at the public works and building maintenance level and the like. But that's whose charge, really, to try to create efficiencies. If our internal service departments operate more efficiently, eventually those savings will be reflected in the ISFs themselves.
But there's no incentive for any of those departments to be more efficient.
Unless we're on the precipice of a crisis.
Unless we create a competition somehow. And the competition might be that the library department has the option of buying those services from somewhere else, and the city can bid for those services just like anyone else. It's really a shame when we've got a department as small as the library that gets their operating budget cut year after year, and their ISF charges are going up.
Just to be clear, it's not being cut. It's not being increased. It's left flat. Now, was it cut in 2007? Was it cut during the recession? Are they not at pre-recession levels from a staffing perspective? Absolutely. And that goes to the point we made earlier. They have not. We're still operating. The library is a great example, very leanly in the organization. But there have not been cuts in the department since the recession.
Well,
that's true. They're not back to pre-recession staffing levels.
We don't need to have an argument. And the point is that we've got to find a way to create some better incentives for controlling costs. And ISFs are not a good way to control costs, because I hate to use IT department, but everybody likes to talk about IT because they provide services to everyone else in the city. If there is no incentive for IT to become more efficient and reduce their costs and come back to the user departments and say, you know how last year we charged you $25,000, this year we're only going to charge you $24,000. There's no incentive to do that because there's no competition.
But that's a fair point, but I will say this, food for thought. If every department operated its own IT function and service, the aggregate cost of everybody hosting their own internal service functions is going to be greater than a single department that's distributing its cost by location. Now, if you're going to put it all out to bid and compete at every level, there may be some winners and losers in that. There may be some savings. There may not be. Unfortunately, IT, legal, claims, those are areas that are becoming more and more critical to functionality in all that we do, and there are reasons why IT costs have gone up in years.
Well, like I said, it's just I use that term only because everybody recognizes that they provide services across the city.
No, appreciate it.
But it wasn't meant to be a harpoon aimed at them.
Commissioner Esser?
Yeah, I think just overall we really need to look at reducing the overall general budget. And I think that considering the personnel expense is about 70% of the budget, that's where we need to pretty much concentrate. And I think if we really take that number one to heart, I think the only people that are in the position to really make a hard line stance on cutting the budget is the council. And, as far as I see that a mandate needs to come down that they have to cut, look at in line with the declining or flat revenues that we have, that we need to look at cutting 5, 10, whatever arbitrary number we come up with, but it's something that needs to be looked at because, as you said, there's no real internal incentive for, we can put this recommendation and say, look at the value added and everything. But, you know, when you're in here and you're the department head and doing that, I mean, and you don't have the incentive, whether it's revenue cost, you know, savings that's going to up your salary for the next year, you know, you have no real incentive to do it. The only people that can really mandate in this city structure is really saying, the council saying, hey, look, you know, we've got flat revenues here. We've got to come up with a savings of 1 million out of the budget. You know, you guys need to go and find it. Go find it in you know, and personnel or something. But something has to come, that's the hard line that has to come down. And I think that's, you know, where we need to have maybe look in the future, like when in this next budget process, we need to really look at the numbers. This whole committee, we really need to look at these numbers. We really need to look at these revenues, and we need to come up with an overall number where we think this budget needs to be cut. This, you know, and I mean, I don't see it any other way. If, like you said, you know, we keep going and going, and we're going to come out a couple years from now. I mean, this next budget, yeah, sure, we might have enough revenues and everything to cover the expenses, but what about a couple years from now? If we don't start getting some businesses into the city and start generating some real, you know, revenue, we're in a bad situation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further comments? Can I have a motion to receive and file?
Motion to receive and file historical internal service fund overhead allocation comparison.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Unanimous. Item number 9, member items and referrals to staff for budget and finance. So we already have the edited letter, which we approved. So that will go forth. Further comments?
I have a question, and I don't think it'd end up being a referral, but maybe as part of our future discussions. When I was looking through the mid-year, these allocations of personnel in the Waterfront and Economic Department, you've got 800 hours to initiate efforts in support of revitalization of the Artesia Aviation Commercial Corridor, et cetera. Just wondering how we come to these numbers.
Oh, those are the performance metrics?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what that is at the beginning of the fiscal year, kind of an estimate of if you've got, call it 4 full-time employees times 2,080 hours, working hours a year. So, you know, you've got, call it, we'll say you got 10,000 hours to deal with.
Not an actual, it's an estimate.
It's an estimate, okay, between the staff that are going to work on that project for the course of the year, it's us taking a sense of what are our priorities from a work program standpoint, so we are thinking about allocation of resources. Okay. So that's an effort. They think, hey, we're going to spend, 4 people are going to spend 200 hours of their year working on revitalizing Artesia.
1,040 hours to research opportunity and integrate property management leasing software in the waterfront.
Yeah, that's a big one. That creating a software that will help create, you know, pinging, sort of audit reminders, checks. We are working off sort of a manual Excel.
Pretty sure there's an out-of-the-box solution for that.
Oh, no, there are. In fact, it's an RFP process, so there's quite a few, but it doesn't just involve waterfront. That also involves IT and other functions.
Why it's
for
1,000
compatibility.
hours.
Yeah, so it's a comprehensive effort.
Okay, thank you.
Be good to get it added, though. It'll be great. Should help. That's an efficiency down the road.
Commissioners, any other items or referrals?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.